world's greatest Bronze Age Spider-Man podcast. Here comes the Spider-Cast. I'm your co-host, Mike Allen, as always, I'm joined by
Joshua Mervell, and today we're going to be taking a look at Spidey crossover comics from the late 80s.
Yes, it's been a while since we've done any of these, but yeah, these are going to be pretty fun. And we're joined by a G.I. Jolie.
Hello.
She's speaking to us from her new comic book store, The Long Box.
Yes.
I know you can't see it, listeners, but it looks great.
It's pretty cool.
We'll post photos.
Yes, we'll post photos. We're also joined by Bex Luthor.
I'm also here.
Yay!
And I don't have a comic book store, but it might look like it by all the things in my home.
Definitely looks like you have a card store for sure.
Just ignore all of this Magic the Gathering, because it makes me look less cool.
Yeah.
Shit, it's like over here too, and like there's literal just loose cards on the desk.
Screen is barely covering anything. If you look like you're in a card store, it looks like Josh works in a greenhouse. So
I have.
Fair.
Does anyone need pre-release kits? I got
Oh
some.
my god.
I love it.
I wish
Turn
I
the
was into
camera around.
Magic because I'd have a source.
Why, you have too much
in you
money?
for like new
You have
cards.
too much money and you need to spend it on dumb cardboard?
Yeah, I'd like to burn a hole in my pocket, please.
Okay. Well,
All right.
we all love printed pieces of paper here on the podcast.
This is true.
Yeah,
This
do.
is true.
Don't hate.
For the record, I used to own every single issue of the Tom DeFalco, Ron Frenz Thor run. And yeah, and then I started to read them, read a few issues, sold them all. But
They're
to be
good, eh?
honest, rereading this issue, I did enjoy it, but I'll save my review for later. But who's going to tell us what happened in this issue?
I will be talking
Joshua
about this
Mervell. All
one. Do a
right, tell
quick
us.
Recap of The Mighty Thor, number 391, featuring a guest appearance of the Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah. This one's called The Madness of Mongoose. We get this this first splash page is just so freaking amazing.
Yes.
I love it so
Really
much. This whole book, Ron Frenz, like the art in this is just like perfect. I love it. So really the first few pages, we just get Spider-Man talking about his life and recapping literally everything, even though pretty much everything he's talking about doesn't matter. This is at the time where he gets rid of the black costume and he's back to the red and blues, but it's before MJ sews him a brand new suit, so he's still using the costume, the Halloween costume that he got in Europe. So, again, not that that's important for
Nice
this
attention
story,
to detail, though. Yeah.
but it puts you in a place in time, and you know exactly when this story is taking place. So then we cut over to a hotel. We see these like two bellhops. They're talking to each other about this weird hotel guest who has been there for like weeks, and we find out that it's Mongoose. Like not in his costume. He's got these like sharp teeth, pretty scary guy. He's there. He's back in town to hunt down and eat the flesh of one of his enemies. We cut over to Thor. Not in his Donald Blake attire. He's somebody else, and I can't remember. Sigurd Jarlson?
I don't know how to pronounce it, but yeah, Sigurd Jarlson.
Yeah, Sigurd.
It's like a Nordic name or something.
To be honest, I don't know. Are you guys familiar with this alter ego? I only know Donald Blake.
No.
I'm only familiar with it because I've read the entire handbook of the Marvel Universe cover to cover because I had no
Right.
social life in high school. But yes, this was a second secret identity created by Walt Simonson.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what this alter ego's deal is, but it's not super important for this one. it's all we need to know is that he's in like civilian clothes and he's pretending to be a mortal. So he's back on Earth. It's been years now since he's been on Earth, and he's ready to go back to his regular life. He goes back to his apartment, and it's completely torn down. That's how long he's been, and they're starting to build a Toys R Us. So he's like, dang, that kind of sucks. I guess I'll go find a job. So he meets up with his old friend who's in construction, and like on the spot gets him a job. And he's like introducing Thor to like the building managers and the architect, and they're kind of like talking or whatever about the building and how there's so many changes that are happening, and it's been so long they've been working on this building. We cut over to Mongoose, who is like hiding on another building watching what's going on, and he's got like some sort of device in his hand. I don't think he uses the device at all in the story, but
yeah,
he's got a remote control in his hand, I guess.
Maybe he's using it to locate?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't even know.
Anyways, he jumps over to the building and starts fighting Thor. He doesn't have his hammer on him, and he can't call it, so he's kind of like trapped and doesn't have a way to like combat this guy, and gets thrown off a building. But Spider-Man swoops in to save the day and lowers him to the ground. Spider-Man goes up to the building and starts fighting him, while Thor goes into his backpack and finds the hammer, activates it. He's like fully in his Thor costume now, and he flies up to help Spider-Man, who's just been gassed by the mongoose, and he's about to get his neck just like chewed up. Thor swoops in at the last minute and punches Mongoose in the face, and really nothing super important happens. There's a lot of like fun action fight scenes going on. Spidey and Thor teaming up is actually like pretty cool. It's not really dull at any moment, but nothing too important happens. Spider-Man and Thor decide to team up, and Mongoose throws like one of the construction vehicles at one of the bottom like joists of this building, so the whole thing is starting to like teeter-totter and fall, and he uses that opportunity to get away because he knows he won't be able to take on Thor and Spider-Man at the same time. So Mongoose like scurries. Thor is holding up the entire building by himself, this like huge skyscraper, while Spider-Man is like frantically grabbing beams and like putting them under to like secure the building so it doesn't fall over. So the two of them end up saving the day, but unfortunately one of the workers, some of the building materials collapsed on him, so Thor has to like grab him and quickly fly to a hospital to get him medical attention. Spider-Man's kind of like left there like, well, glad I could help, and swings away. That's kind of the last we see of them. And then we get this like cutaway to some of the Asgardians trying to fix the Rainbow Bridge that was destroyed. I can't remember exactly what's going on, but I think Baldur is in charge of Asgard at this time, and then the Warriors 3 are there trying to figure out a way to go from different realms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then it ends in this kind of odd cliffhanger. To be honest, I wasn't sure what the cliffhanger was. I thought that they're implying that Hogan the Grim was going to become the new leader, but I guess
it looks like maybe he's sacrificing himself to become like a portal, or like become almost like the new bridge. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what's going on. It's definitely interesting. That's kind of a cool cliffhanger. And yeah, this was a really good book. I really, really like this one. I think it was my favorite of all three. It was like a super simple story. The mongoose is like such a ridiculous villain, but is like super fun and corny. I think a great villain for Thor, without him being just like another Asgardian or another god. I love Spider-Man's reason for being there. Like, he's just kind of like swinging by and helping, saving the day. Like, there's no like weird plot point that's tying him there. Yeah, I think all in all, it was like a nice, really quick read too, like super fast. I think maybe the fastest comic I've read for the show. Like it was just so easy to read, I think.
That's surprising, even with all like the flowery text coming out of Thor's mouth.
Yeah, especially that. I think that's also why I have a hard time reading a lot of Thor books, is because it's just so like dense in dialogue to be old timey and like I don't know, make him a god.
The Shakespearean English, right?
Yeah.
When he flies away with the guy, he's like, "Stand ye back."
Right.
I was like, okay, that's enough out of you, Thor.
Well, we should also remind listeners that this is the same team that did Spider-Man from Amazing Spider-Man, what was it, 252 all the way to 285 before they were fired. But it's funny because Josh, you pointed out how good especially the opening splash pages. I feel like it was almost Ron Frenz giving a big fuck you to the Spider-Man books, being like, I can do Spider-Man better than you guys can, right?
It looks probably better than the work on Spider-Man. Like that's how much I love the art in this book.
Yep. It's really good.
Maybe that's just me, but it's just so clean, so precise, like to the point. There's not like any extra like fluff in it. Everything is clearly told. The art, the style looks like golden age flashback art. Like it's got that feel to it. It's super great.
Well, yeah, Ron Frenz, he's always kind of, his style's like an amalgamation of like Jack Kirby, John Buscema, a little bit of Steve Ditko. So it just, I used to kind of dismiss him when I was younger, but now I realize, no, he's just a classic Marvel artist. And even though I didn't love this run when I read it, I think if it was being published now, I would buy it simply because it's like a throwback. Like you said, like it feels like a classic Marvel comic.
Like almost every panel looks like it could be one of those like posters that they sell with like, that's like on the like hardwood, like hanging posters. Like that's the kind of art it is.
Yep. G.I. Julie, what'd you think of this one?
I liked it. It was just super dense to read because of the dialogue. But because it's Thor's dialogue, it made a lot of sense. I just thought it was like the plot is also strange too. It felt very like team uppy but clean.
Right.
Like understandable. The idea that Thor would come back to Earth as his Earth, whatever alter ego he's chosen, and he would run into his old pal from a construction site, and then that pal would get him a job.
I love
and
it.
He would be working on a construction site. Like, that's what Thor is doing. And then Mongoose just happens to be there 4 months on the low, waiting to eat his flesh. Or whoever's flesh. So many weird things are happening in this book that I shouldn't like it. But I like it a lot.
Well, yeah, it's like hokey and cheesy and definitely unpretentious. I think that's why it's so much fun. Like Tom DeFalco, he has no aspirations to make like fine art. He's just having fun, right?
Yeah, and like Josh was saying, the art is so clean. My favorite panel is the one big one that shows the building.
Yes.
And, like, one tiny word bubble from underneath that's like, Spider-Man, help me. It's like,
yep.
Well, the building is huge. And you're like, you're Thor. Well, the reader's like, but you're Thor. What the heck is Spider-Man going to do to help you?
Right.
Turns out he's just going to do the rest of the construction.
Yep.
While you hold the building up.
Right.
It's just so... that's exactly the kind of hijinks and shenanigans I expect, I guess.
It's also cool when Thor's like, he's like, please, Spider-Man, hurry. Right? I love that little part. He's really struggling there. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Bex Luthor, what do you think?
Yeah, no, it's very fun. Not familiar with the mongoose, and from the Wikipedia, not important. At first I was like, did he like change the color of his skin? But then I'm like, I think that's just the suit. But then his teeth, I'm confused about the mongooseification of this man. I I do like the costume, though. It's pretty fun. I would like to know more about Mongoose. Why does he want to eat flesh? I mean, not particularly a Mongoose attribute, I think, right? Like, aren't they like little weasels?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Um,
Good point.
But yeah, when he's like about to bite Spider-Man's like head clean off, that's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
And I think Spider-Man and Thor, they team up really well, especially when you have this very foppish Thor, and the writing of Spider-Man is dead on too, which doesn't happen a lot when he's in other comics,
Yep.
right? It's normally like either very childish or too emo.
Yeah.
And I do love that, like, page 2, we're getting the background for Spider-Man, just to, like, in case you don't know who Spider-Man is, just Mary Jane's just in a bikini.
Yeah.
It's like, Peter's like, and also my wife, who's super hot, guys, and real. Definitely, she's real.
He's also saying this out loud, right? Like it's not a thought
true,
bubble.
true.
Like he's like, man, I got a hot wife, huh?
To be fair, he should be. He should be saying that. Good
like-
man.
She's gonna come home with all kinds of samples of bathing suits. Can't wait.
You know what? Be proud of her. She's working hard. Yeah, the art is so clean, and there's like, even on like that first page where you're first reintroduced to Thor, like every person in that panel, it's not just like smudgy faces. You can like there's character in each person. There's just enough detail in every panel that is necessary. Like he doesn't draw every single window of every single building, but on the building where it is important that he draws all the windows, he does, right? So I like that about it. I love that Thor works on Power Ranger rules of constantly dressing in the colors that are appropriate to his costume.
Yeah, good point.
I love when superheroes do that. That's my favorite thing that they do. When Peter wears red and blue, I love that. So Thor's just fully in like a Canadian tuxedo with a denim jacket and denim jeans and a red shirt. Fantastic. It's just a lot of fun, but also was interesting enough that like I wasn't just like, cool, boring comic. I was like, well, what's happening to Thor now? Now I like kind of care about what's happening to Thor. And like all these construction workers, they all have an interesting personality. There's the really annoying guy that Spidey webs up finally. I was like, yeah, let's web him up. Like I was excited about it. It was a good read. Yeah, I do like how this team up just jumps in at a very appropriate time for like us who have no idea what's going on in Thor right now, because it's like Thor who just returned to Earth at this moment. Oh, cool. So Thor's on Earth. Cool. Thank you for starting a new plot line now.
Yep.
as I'm jumping in.
Good point. And then it gives you. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and then at the end you find out the overarching plot is continuing about what's going on in Asgard. So I was like,
And it makes you want to read the next one, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's smart. This is a good way to do a crossover.
Because it makes sense, because it's like, okay, this is going on. Spider-Man is in New York. Thor's in New York. They happen to meet. And then like we don't have to have like these weird circumstances to get them to like come to the same place. I think the next issue also kind of does that really well, where it's like Tony Stark is at a tech conference. It's like, as he does, Spider-Man goes because he's a nerd. Like that's also one that makes sense. So like sometimes it's just so hard because they shoehorn in the crossovers and it's just like everyone's in New York. Yeah, they'll see each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like no matter how big of a city you're in, you always run into your ex when you don't want to, right? Like
Yeah. That's true.
Right. And like, Spidey's just like swinging around. Spider Sense goes off, right? Like it's so easy to just plop him into a story real quick. And I think what's nice too, I think kind of like what you were saying, Bex, is that it's just like he's done now in the story.
Yeah.
You know, like we don't have to have him come back and like I need to track down Mongoose. It's like, no, why? He doesn't care. Like Thor's on it. Leave it be. You know what I mean? He's going to continue on with his life. He was just stopping by to help a friend for a second, and now he's gone.
Peter, you don't need another animal-based rogue
Yeah.
to hate you and come after you constantly.
So I also want to quickly point out that Tom DeFalco, I've decided, is the second best writer of Spidey dialogue after Stan Lee. My favorite panel is when Mongoose is about to jump on him and he says, "I've warned you to stay out of this, Spider-Man. Now you must pay the ultimate price." And Spider-Man says, "Oh no, don't tell me that you're going to force me to wear acid wash jeans."
There's something else he said that was really great.
Yeah, there's a couple that stood out.
Yeah.
I paid the ultimate price 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, joke's on you, Spidey. They're back.
Yeah. But the other thing I want to point out, I'm not sure if anyone noticed, but on digital page 7, when we're introduced to this boss or whatever he is. Oh, okay. So this guy that you called annoying, Becca. He's only the architect. This building is an Aloysius R. Jamesley production. It's my work, my vision. This guy here, okay? So I'm looking at this and I'm like, there's no way. This can't be a coincidence. The guy's name is Aloysius R. Jamesley. And if you remember, the editor of Spider-Man was James Owsley, and he happened to be the one that fired Tom DeFalco and Ron Frenz. So I posted on Facebook this panel or this page, and I put Aloysius R. Jamesley, Tom DeFalco and Ron Frenz take a dig at their former editor. And all these people commented, and somebody named Ron Frenz responded and said, "Dig or loving homage?" And so then Brett Breeding, the inker of this book, said with a shovel in his hand. And then Ron Frenz responded, "Why, I never." And so anyway, and then Gregory Wright, who was working at Marvel at the time, said we all took humorous swipes at each other in the comics. So anyway, if you get a chance to just glance through this comic again, keep in mind this is a total dig
awesome
at Jim Owsley. Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
I felt, the things that he said, he was like, "This is my world. I am the architect. I am the only architect." It's
right.
Vision.
He's like, "Trust me, I'm a genius." Yes. It's funny. And keep in mind, he was...
him.
Oh, of course. That was the point. And keep in mind, he was only 25 at the time? He was younger than... He was basically the same age Becca was when I met her. And he was the editor of all the Spider-Man books.
Jeez.
I was 18 when you met me,
Okay.
so...
Oh, geez. Were you? Okay.
Yeah. Her and Alicia, well, officially when we first met them.
Shout out.
Yeah.
Were you old enough to be in a bar?
Yes. Huh?
19.
Oh. Shut up. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Okay.
Look, I used to be cool. And they didn't card there, so it was fine.
Once upon a time. All right.
So I didn't meet you guys in a bar, though, so...
No, but I met Mike at a bar. This was...
Yeah.
Yes.
This is
and
true.
I told him I liked the show. And he was like, "Why is this woman with bright green hair talking to me?"
The mohawk was 2 feet tall.
It was
Anyway.
some different times there. I was struggling.
Yeah. Anyway.
I was not editing any Marvel comics, unfortunately.
I wish.
Yeah. Me too. Oh, it would be so much better if we had to read those instead of the others.
I don't know, man. You didn't want to read the shit I was writing when I was 18. It was sad, and Harry Potter was in love with me.
That's fine. I definitely want to read it. I want to read it right after this podcast, actually.
Well, if you need my fanfiction.net account username, it's... Just kidding, you can't have it.
Cliffhanger. Okay. So, I'm going to say I definitely recommend this book. And not only do I recommend it, it makes me want to go back and reread these Thors that I owned and then sold. Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, I really love this issue. It's a total recommend for me.
All right. G.I. Jolie?
It is a recommend. For sure.
Bex Luthor?
5 out of 5 mongooses for me.
Awesome. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to the first time I think we've ever read Iron Man on the show. Also the first time we've read Thor. But,
Is
yeah. I was buying Iron Man at this time. Actually, my brother was. And so I read this as a kid many times.
Thor.
Huh?
I feel like we've read Thor before on the show.
We have.
Possibly.
Yeah. I think first time for Iron Man, though.
Okay, first time for Iron Man.
Yeah.
Who's going to tell us what happened in Iron Man?
I think it is me.
Oh, it's Becca.
All right.
Josh just went.
Iron Man number 234.
Yeah, so we start off, we're at, like I was talking about earlier, we're at a tech conference. I think this woman is a robot on the first splash page, but I'm not 100% sure. She's got a visitor badge on her ass, so I don't know. But 2 for 2 comic books starting out the gate with just sexy ladies. Let's go. So we start off and Tony Stark is at this tech conference and he's showing off technology, I guess. I don't know. I'm not fully as invested into the stories. This one is the Thor one was. This one is not as easy to digest, I would think. It looks like Stark Enterprises has just gone through some sort of merger or is going through some sort of merger. You know, all your favorite things to read about when you're reading comic books about superheroes. Business merging. So we go over to actually something interesting where it's Peter Parker's showing up and a guy's like, excuse me, you can't come in here. And he's like, I work for the Daily Bugle. So they let him in and he's like, haha, joke's on them, I'm just a big old nerd. So he comes in to take pictures of the tech conference and we go over to another character where it's James Rhodes and he's in an airplane and he's blowing some stuff out, but it turns to be just a simulation. He's hitting on the lady who is running the simulation and Tony Stark comes over. He's like, hey, what about this one girl? And he's like, irrelevant. And I'm like, okay, cool character moment for James Rhodes. So they are both leaving the tech conference and they walk past the giant, huge Stain International setup for Stain International. And Tony Stark is obviously having some flashbacks because Obadiah Stane tried to kill him and steal his company and a whole mess of whack of stuff. But so as they walk by the Stain International thing, there's this guy in a lovely sweater who has his spider sense tingles because Peter's near him, and Peter's spider sense tingles because he's near this guy. Which, whatever, irrelevant. So then lots of things happening. So as Tony Stark and James Rhodes are leaving, a security guard comes up to him and is like, hey, long time no see, nice to see you, whatever, shakes his hand, and hands him a note hidden in his hand that he does not read for a full day because he's busy.
Idiotic, but anyway, yeah.
He's just like, that's an interesting piece of paper. Better not open this immediately because who shows up but some lady Kathy Dare in the worst outfit I think a sexy lady has ever worn at a comic book.
You've never worn go-go boots with little bows at the top?
And a short suit
with fishnets underneath, of course.
Yeah, and then blue piping that matches the dog's leash, which cute. I will say, good job, Kathy. So Kathy walks up to them because they're leaving the convention center, and she's like, "Hey, remember me?" And he's like, "How could I forget?" And then she also says her name, so he definitely can't forget, because I'm sure Tony did not remember who she was. But she's like, "I'm Kathy Dare." So, she's like, "Can I buy you dinner, Mr. Billionaire Tony Stark?" And she's like, "Yeah, sure." So he ditches Rhodey, who he was supposed to go sightseeing with, because this girl shows up. And Rhodey's like, maybe I'll go call my actual girlfriend, Dick. So then back at the convention center, the guy who was working for Stain International, he's pretty sketchy, and his eyes are glowing green because he senses radiation. Because Spider-Man came back, he just couldn't. His spider sense went off, and he has to come back now. So he shows back up, and he sees the guy. The guy turns into the radioactive man, which is why his spider sense is going off. And it turns out that this radioactive man, when he's near Spider-Man, makes him incredibly weak. He's basically kryptonite for Spider-Man. So they have a little tussle, and Spider-Man throws an entire flight simulator at him, but it doesn't really matter. I forgot that happened.
He gives us like 3 for the butt tally, though. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, it's all butts all the time for this issue of Spider-Man. But yeah, basically, Radioactive Man knocks him out because he's so weak around him. He picks him up bridal style and takes him away. And he talks to the security guards who show up, and he's like, "You don't want none of this." And they're like, "All right, cool, like we don't." So yeah. Then the next morning, Tony Stark wakes up in bed making out with a dog, as you do. Because he clearly spent the night with Kathy Darren. Her dog was just there the whole time too. Rhodey shows up. I thought they were in an apartment, but I think they're in a hotel. But Rhodey shows up in this woman's apartment and is like, all right, time to go. And then Kathy is written out of the rest of the story, I guess. She was in the same outfit, too. I might add. If this is her apartment, change outfits. So now is when Tony decides to finally open up the note that he was given. A whole day later. He's like, yeah, it turns out the note from that guy was talking about how shit's going down. It's gonna be bad. People are gonna die. So better suit up. So for some reason, they need to smuggle the Iron Man suit at nighttime. They have to wait till nighttime for some reason.
He doesn't have any of that fun nanotech.
Yeah, this is pre-nanotech.
Pre-nanotech. So, he goes around and he's investigating Stain Enterprises, and he finds that Spider-Man has been kidnapped and is now being experimented on. Peter's just unmasked on an operating table. Radioactive Man is just holding a scalpel, and he's like, well, I need your radioactive blood, I guess. So Iron Man crashes through the door, a fight ensues, and Peter is still weak, but he tries to help Iron Man out, and Iron Man's like, no, you gotta get out of here, like, you're useless. So he dons a radiation suit so he can give Radioactive Man a huge kick in the teeth. But then his radioactivity is too much for Spider-Man, so Iron Man melts the lead ceiling and walls and encases Radioactive Man in molten lead. And then...
How's he gonna go to the bathroom? Anyway.
Yeah, and then Peter's like, all right, cool, thanks. And the biggest problem Peter has with everything that's happening is that Iron Man can call the police from his helmet.
Oh, no.
And then they both... Iron Man takes him home, I guess. Or, he drops him off at the World Trade Center. And then it's a fun time of him and Rhodey watching TV, and it turns out that they arrested the man encased in lead. So...
Yeah.
As Tony Stark says, the good guys do win. I don't know who the good guys were in this one, but
they won.
But I guess they won. Was it the guy who, instead of checking in on the safety of his friends and family, slept with just a random woman and then worried about it later? I don't know if that's a good guy. Or was it the guy who was hitting on another woman while he has a girlfriend at home?
Okay, so we should remind listeners that Tony Stark is a womanizer, and apparently so is James Rhodey.
Yeah, apparently.
I didn't know that about him.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. I guess I forgot. But these were strange times. Or
accurate times. I don't know.
Or accurate, yeah, accurate representation. I just gotta say quickly, I was reading Iron Man when this came out. We should remind people David Michelinie is also writing Amazing Spider-Man at the same time, right? So that's, again, why I think Peter Parker is accurate. But Jackson Guice, famous mostly for doing Micronauts and Superman and Iron Man, I think the art is pretty dull, to be honest. He also did X Factor. I really think this art is dull. I have never been a fan of Jackson Guice. And I think that, I'd like to compare this story to Tom DeFalco's Thor story, because there's some things about this that are better, but some things that are worse. I think the plot is probably a little bit more complicated and more well thought out in this, but it has a dull kind of feeling to it. There's something about it I don't like, but I can't put my finger on it. But I think the art definitely drags it down a little bit. So I have mixed feelings about this one. But Josh, what did you think?
Yeah, the art for me is strange. It's very inconsistent. I feel how some of the non-regular like characters are drawn. Like Peter Parker is so inconsistent.
Right.
I didn't realize it was even Peter Parker when we first saw him until I started reading. Like it just does not look like Peter at all. Yeah, sometimes the art is like very almost realistic. Like it has some sort of realism behind it, but then other times it's almost like a caricature. Some of the people standing around. So it at times it just feels a little disjointed, I guess. The story's fine. I like that. I like the reason Spider-Man is there, so I don't have any problem with like the team up part of it. I think that's, of course, Peter Parker would try and sneak into a science fair, or not a science fair, but you know what I mean, like a tech conference, and then his spider sense is going off, so of course he's going to go back after dark and investigate what's going on. So that's cool. I don't know. I think everything else is fine. It feels like a regular Iron Man story. I guess I just wasn't too thrilled. I'm not a huge Iron Man comic fan. I think that, I don't know. It's just not for me. I'm not super into like the military stuff and like that like corporate dealings and arms dealing and stuff. But it was written all right, I guess. I don't know. I think maybe too at times the dialogue was just a lot like overstuffed. You could say a lot of the things in a lot less words. Right. I think maybe that's another reason why it feels like it drags on so much. Right.
G.I. Jolie, what'd you think?
The art was weird. And it was really my biggest pet peeve is that most artists who draw superheroes are just drawing the nude anatomy and then coloring in a suit, because there shouldn't be any reason why you can see that kind of musculature or detail in the muscle when you're looking at a suit. My favorite thing, though, about the art is obviously, so I'm not sure how familiar with this I'm not sure how familiar this artist is with Spider-Man. It doesn't seem like very familiar, because it was a joy to watch him grapple with how he should shade or draw his pelvic region.
I'm looking at it right now. Yeah.
Several times there were interesting ways of interpreting that. And all of them accurate, I want to say. Like, okay, so the art was not great, but also there were some of these pose choices are just weird. Where he's fighting Radioactive Man, and Radioactive Man's like, no, stay, and he like gets him with his radioactive power. But it shows Spider-Man in the right top hand corner of the panel being blasted away, but it's just
ass
and taint.
Yeah.
Wait, where is this panel? I have to find it. Hold on.
Digital. Oh, I have it on one. So right after they show you the Radioactive Man, like after they reveal, it's the next page. So this is where when Becca was saying there's a big fight, it's just butts. It is just butts. I will give it to this man. He honestly understands anatomy.
I'm looking. Yeah. Okay. There's definitely a lot of depictions of asses, but I don't know if these are actually accurate. I don't know. It's digital.
I mean,
page 11.
It's a pretty spot on gooch, I will say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not that I'm particularly, partial to the gooch myself, but
like, and it made me think, wow, this must be something that comic artists deal with every day. how full do I make the area? Do I make it full? Do I make it seem like there is a tuck situation? I don't know. Because in all honesty, if I were a superhero, I'd be wearing a costume that's just a little bit baggier.
Yeah, good point.
Dancer's belt, something.
At least. I mean, they make it in a thong. They make those belts in a thong. So I just want to put that out there. But there's a lot of very accurate shadows. So...
Do we think Spidey wears an athletic cup?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't
Becca,
think so.
have you given your review yet?
No,
I've just been
we're
talking
still
about butts.
talking about his butt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What is my review if not just talking about
I was gonna
the
say,
butts of
what do you
Jolie?
think Vex has been doing?
Yeah.
Joke's on you guys. I'm gonna talk about the dog.
Oh, yeah.
My review on this one is bad. Didn't like it. Not enjoyable. Not interesting. Hard to get through. Didn't care. The other one, I was like, oh, what happens to Thor? And this one, man, I hope Tony Stark fucking dies. I hope that's what happens to him, but I don't care enough to find out if it's true.
Well,
I'm with Josh. I have a hard time reading these older Iron Man comics because I hate Tony Stark. I hate the depiction of Tony Stark as the main character, and it makes it hard to read.
It's crazy though, because like I think about Tony Stark, and I'm sure I would like him, and then I read it, and then I'm like, oh no, I hate this guy. I hate this. All of this.
It's just that very womanizer stage of Tony Stark where he's like super smug and everything just happens to go his way, and I hate it. Once he like gets shot and becomes an alcoholic, that's the Tony Stark I relate to.
Yeah.
This one. Speaking of getting shot, though, does anyone want some Kathy Dare spoilers?
Yes.
She fucking shoots him.
yeah, that's right. And he's in a wheelchair for like a year, right?
Yeah. She straight up just goes crazy and shoots him.
Viewers at home, if you could see Joshua Mervell's face right now, his eyes are like saucers.
That's
Like
so...
floating out of his head, yeah.
I didn't realize that was her.
Yeah. This is her. Because this is like, you see her twice, and then she shoots him.
That's amazing. Huh.
So, yeah.
And then I think
Okay.
I think she commits suicide. I think she kills herself after that.
Oh my god.
We should also point out David Michelinie and Bob Layton, they wrote a famous run on Iron Man in the 70s and 80s, and then they came back into this one. The first one contains Demon in a Bottle, and this one contains Tony Stark getting shot and crippled. So,
And those are the only Tony Starks I like, is when he gets shot and when he's an alcoholic.
there you go.
All the in-betweens can suck it.
We should. We'll also
sorry,
quickly say that Iron Man was not really popular for the first, 40 years of publication. It wasn't really until the movie that it became really popular. So this is like pre Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man. So
Yeah, I feel like RDJ really changed the character, even in the comics, because now when you see him, he's based off of what you see in the movies. And of course,
100%.
current Tony Stark in the comics is super likable because it's based off of this character that everybody enjoys.
Yeah.
He's basically, right now in the comics, he's basically like a dad. Like, I don't know about right now, but more recently, he was like, had his squad of little baby Avengers with like Nova and Miles and Kamala, and they were like, thanks, Iron Dad, dropping me off at school. Like, it was very wholesome. And I'm like, this is funny. I mean, good for him for growing up, but...
But
Yeah, there's not a whole lot to... For as much as happens in this comic, not a whole lot to say. It just was kind of dull.
Yeah.
And, like, Spider-Man gets his ass kicked immediately and then is just, like, saved by Iron Man. Like, it's not really a team-up.
yeah, does the suit saves him from radiation? I guess.
For like a minute, and then Radioactive Man's like, haha, joke's on you. I have more radiation than that suit can handle.
No, sorry, Iron Man suit.
Oh, it must.
Like,
There
yeah.
must be.
Well, can we
sort
also
of-
point out that Spider-Man is unmasked and it's not even commented on?
Yep.
Yeah, that is strange. Like Tony never sees his face because he does have like a mask covering, like a
Right.
surgical mask covering his face, and then he keeps it on, and then he puts his mask on, and then the radiation suit. So yeah, Tony definitely doesn't see it, but Radioactive Man and Stain Enterprises definitely.
Yeah.
Whoever was there knows. So, and I assume
Unless, like-
that's never going to come up again.
Absolutely not. But like at least he's half covered this way, right?
Yeah.
On his mouth, but yeah, no, this what's his actual name? Chen Lu?
Yeah.
Definitely knows who this guy is, but doesn't care because he just cares about his radioactive blood. His radioactive spider blood.
I was just going to say, that's what Aerosmith was singing about.
Yeah. Specifically this comic book.
That's a deep cut.
Also, I have a quick question. When he puts on the radiation suit, it is just a skin tight suit too. So I want to know what scientists are going around with these like spandex butt forming radiation suits.
That's a good point.
They only had an
I don't know.
extra small.
They obviously haven't read this comic.
That only came in Becca sizes, unfortunately, for Peter Parker, who's jacked as hell too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like especially in the opening page, the first time you see him, yeah, he's been doing doing arm days a lot.
Just arms though, because he's super skinny,
Yeah.
but jacked arms, and it's so awkward to look at.
So yeah, like I said, I read this as a kid. I was always kind of like on the fence about whether or not I enjoyed these Iron Man comics as a kid. I am gonna go back and reread them. This issue was definitely not great, so I don't know if I can recommend it. Yeah, kind of a mild thumbs down. Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, I didn't hate it, but
Right,
yeah, not a huge fan. I don't think I'd really recommend it.
right. G.I. Joe Lee.
I gave it 2 out of 5 Pugginses. And
His name
maybe
was Puggins.
1 Tom Selleck mustache. Because that mustache is long. And
Yeah.
it's long enough to be creepy.
Yeah, it's a molestache. Bex Luthor, what do you think?
I forgot that his name was Puggins. That's a good name. I like this comic a little bit more.
I only like
no.
the dog.
Now I'm sad about the comic book dog because Kathy dies and Puggins' mom dies. What happens to Puggins?
He gets homed into a better family with somebody who isn't a murderer.
Oh, fair. Okay.
Yeah. Or maybe
To be-
like Kathy has like a really good sibling, you know, that inherits Puggins, and they have a farm with chickens and ducks, and Puggins gets to play.
You really gonna tell me
befriends-
Puggins went to the farm?
Yeah, he befriends the pig on the farm, and there's a movie, and they go to the fair, and then there's a
Okay.
spider spelling in a web.
So,
The only good
Some
thing about this comic
Puggins.
is Puggins.
so Bex, do you recommend or no?
No, just look up Puggins, and then that's all you need. You just need to see little man.
All right. All right. Now we're gonna move on to Marvel Fanfare number 42, and I gotta quickly point out this was published in 89, February 89. But since Spider-Man is in his cloth black Spider-Man costume, it has to be set in 1987. So I'm only gonna guess that this was a fill-in that they didn't use, and so then they were like, okay, well, what do we do with it? So we'll just put it in Marvel Fanfare. I'm just going to assume that's what happened. So this story is written by Carl Potts and drawn by Terry Shoemaker, who I know mostly from New Mutants. And anyway, so we start off with Spider-Man swinging around the city in his black costume. Pardon me, excuse me. And he goes into the Daily Bugle, as he did back in those days and still today, and he runs into Catherine Cushing and is asking her for a assignment, and she tells him that she has an assignment for him, but she has to go to
The bank?
What's that?
Forget it.
Yeah, basically Margaret Thatcher is coming in for a surprise meeting on Northern Ireland. And all my staffers are on assignment. You want the job. So here's the thing. This is the little conundrum. There's a helicopter leaving at 3:15, and right now it's 2:30. And Peter Parker's like, well, I've got a problem. I don't have any money. So I need you to give me a check so that I can cash it, get the money, and then I'll have money to take this helicopter. So then Catherine Cushing steps outside and tells her secretary to give Peter Parker a check. But then just as Peter Parker's walking out, the secretary, who is Betty Brant, sees that Peter Parker has a split in his ass. Talk about asses again, right?
Pants, in his pants.
In his jeans, yeah.
We all have splits in our asses.
Yeah. So she can actually see, she's like, whoa, Paul Revere, better keep an eye on your flanks. Black flatters you. So basically she thinks, well, Peter Parker just has black underwear. Little does she know it's his actual Spider-Man costume, right? And so he's like really embarrassed, and she's like, don't worry, I can just go into the bathroom, take off your pants and give them to me, and I'll sew them for you. And he's thinking, well, I can't do that because I'm Spider-Man. So then he's like, why don't you just give me what is that called, the safety pin? And so then the next panel, he's leaning over the desk, and Betty Brant is like in close on his ass, putting a safety pin on his jeans or whatever. And that's just when Kate Cushing walks in, kind of like a little Three's Company situation. Then just at that moment, we see like one of the employees running in from outside, and he's got the check for Peter Parker. So then he takes the check and he runs downstairs, and now he's waiting in line at the bank. And we see him waiting in line, and it's pouring rain out. And while he's waiting, there's a little classic comic book scribble in his thought balloon, which means like he's miserable. And then it happens 3 times. We see the miserable, then the miserable squared, then the miserable cubed, right? So he finally makes his way to the front of the line, and he finds out from the bank teller, she's like, oh, this requires a manager's signature. So that's a different line. You're going to have to go over there. So now he's got like a little skull and crossbones in his thought balloon. So then we see him waiting at a different line. He brings the check over to this guy to be signed. And then he does what he has to do. He goes back over to the bank teller, gets his money. Then on the next page, he brings the money over to buy a helicopter ticket, and then he realizes that when he cashed the check, he accidentally was given an extra $100. So then we have a little conundrum. He's like, wait a minute, I can't keep it. It's not honest, but it would be nice to pay the rent and eat. But then the teller will get in trouble. So he's trying to think of what he should do. He's like, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I got to get on this helicopter. I'm in a rush. I'll go back tomorrow, and then I'll return the check. So then he changes into Spider-Man, and as he's changing into Spider-Man, the safety pin from his ass pops off. And then it's funny because I expected to see the helicopter ride and all that, but we don't see that. We just cut directly to the next day of him going back to the bank. So he's trying to get into the bank, and they're closed, but they let him in anyway. So then he goes and talks to the guy he spoke to the day before, and he gives the extra $100 back to the guy. And then the guy's like, oh, that's cool. Thanks for bringing it back, you know? And then he goes over and Peter Parker looks over and he's like, wait a minute, where's the teller I had yesterday? So then he's like, what happened to her? And she's like, oh, and the guy from the day before is like, oh, she's fired. The inept twit. What? Why? Well, you got your money back. No harm done. She was the only polite person in the whole... This is Peter Parker talking. She was the only polite person in the whole place. And so this asshole is like, don't tell me how to run my bank, blah, blah, blah. So he's like, screw her, screw you, get out of here, blah, blah, blah. So Peter Parker's trying to figure out what to do. So the guy threw out like a folder that Peter Parker had given him. I can't remember what's in the folder. But anyway...
It's all of our personal information.
Right. So then Peter Parker fishes it out of the garbage and takes it home with him. And he's looking through it. He's trying to figure out what to do. He ends up finding, her personal information. So Spidey swings over to her apartment and sees that she's a single mother with 2 kids. And now that she has no money, the landlord is threatening to kick her out and says if she doesn't get $1,600 within the next 30 minutes, she's going to be evicted. And so she's crying and the kids are crying. So Spider-Man's like, huh. So then Spider-Man has another conundrum. He's like, maybe I should lean on the landlord and make him back off, but that would be abusing my powers. And he is within his rights. So what are my other options? So he's like, okay, I know what I'm going to do. So then he swings away and he takes the check that he got from, because he wrote a check to his landlady a couple of days ago, which was a check that bounced. So technically, the check that he wrote Miss Muggins hasn't cleared yet, so he still has money in his account. So he takes $1,500 out, which is all he has, and brings it back to the woman from the bank, gives it to her, and but right when he gets there, the landlord has some toughs. And we know these guys are tough because he's got like a cutoff shirt. You can see his midriff, so you know that he's ready for business. Mm-hmm. And they're ready to throw this mother and his kids out on the street. But then Spider-Man sneaks into her apartment and leaves $1,500, which she finds, gives it to the landlord, and he's like, okay, you got $1,500, you still owe me $100, you've got 1 day to find it, right? So then Spider-Man swings away and he's trying to figure out what to do. So then he just happens to come upon, wait a minute, isn't that the guy from the bank that I saw today that's a complete asshole? Wait a minute. So then he sets his camera up and he sees that this guy is walking into a hotel with a woman. And so he takes pictures of him with this woman. And he knows that this guy is married and this isn't his wife. So he takes the pictures of this guy with this woman. Then the next day, he brings those pictures of the guy with this woman to the guy at the bank manager, and leaves this typed out note that's basically blackmail, saying that if this guy does not rehire the woman with the kids, the bank teller, and also, what else does he tell him to do? Cease all harassment. Yeah, cease all harassment of her as well as all other female employees, or else I will send these pictures to your wife. And so the guy's like, oh shit. So then he picks up the phone, calls up the woman, hires her back, and then he goes into the bathroom, takes the file folder with all the woman's personal information and lights it on fire. Then he leaves. Peter Parker is, of course, in the rafters of the bathroom, jumps down, grabs the file folder, puts it in his bag, and then he's like, well, I do have these photos of myself that I could sell to the Bugle, but because the safety bin split on my ass, you can see my bare ass in the photo. So I could publish these and make money, but if I did that, I would make a complete idiot of myself. So he's like, oh well, burn the picture. I guess once again, I'm not going to get money, and I'm not going to be able to pay my rent. And then by him setting the fire to the photo, it sets the fire alarms or the sprinkler system on fire, and it ends up dousing Peter Parker with water again. And that's the end. And guess what, guys? I also posted this one on Facebook too. And I said that this is one of my favorite Spidey comics that I've ever read. And I think if you were going to give this to someone as a done-in-one story to represent what Peter Parker is all about, you should read this one. And Bex Luthor, I want to know what you think, because I got a feeling you didn't like it because you said you didn't.
It did suck. So you're correct. God, I'm bored. I'm so bored. Where's Thor? I don't care about this woman. I don't care about the bank. I don't.
Don't you care about morality and decisions and things like that? No?
No. You're gonna have a whole story revolving around the fact that Peter Parker's bare ass is showing, but then not show it?
Well, you're not allowed to, but yeah.
Well, then don't do it.
No, you can imply.
No, here's the thing. I want to see the butt.
You can't. You're not allowed.
Don't talk about the butt. Don't do a story about the butt if you're not going to show me the butt.
It's not really a story about the butt. It's a story about...
It's all about the butt.
It's a story
always about the
about.
butt.
It's kind of like the Gold Notebook. He could keep
Good
the
metaphor.
money.
You're right. It is good.
He could keep the money, but he doesn't. And instead he chooses to help this woman. He's going to be evicted, but he chooses to take his last $1,500 to help out this woman. That's why I think this is a perfect encapsulation of what makes a good Spider-Man story. Because it's all about morality. But Becca
Yes,
wants
but
to
it's
see
all about
fist fights.
Peter's weird relationship with morality because it's like, well, I can't threaten the landlord, but I can threaten the bank manager.
Well, but that's because he actually is an asshole.
The landlord said, you have 30 minutes to give me your rent or I'm throwing you, a mother, and children out. The landlord is an asshole.
Yeah, he's an asshole. That's what I said.
Well, okay, so why do we get to threaten the bank manager and not the landlord?
Oh, well, because like Peter Parker said, legally, what he's doing is legal.
He gave her 30 minutes. You have to give her 30 days.
Well, there's a gray area there. But the thing is, though, is with the bank manager is an actual asshole. Like, he's sexually harassing this woman. He fired her because she rejected his sexual advances. Like, on paper, that's much worse than just somebody evicting someone because they didn't pay their rent.
Yeah.
Both these men are jerks to this poor woman who just is trying to take care of her kids. And Peter is just making it slightly worse and then better, I guess. Because she ends up in the exact same spot she was in before.
No, but now she has her job back, though.
Yeah, but she had a job.
And
yeah,
she's
but
caught up on,
she
and she's caught
lost her
caught up
job,
on
and now
rent, though.
Now she has it back. What's that?
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
I guess.
I'd like if somebody came and paid my rent for a month.
I don't know, I found it boring. I
fair.
didn't like the art.
I thought the art was so good.
I don't know, it was like sketchy. I didn't like the way that everyone was drawn. I don't like the weird, it obviously is a fill-in. Where are we in regards to Betty's husband's death? I just have a lot of questions.
Probably before, but
I would hope so. She seems fine. I don't know. It's not the story for me. I don't like a whole like this kind of vibe. It just
Becca wants fist fights and jokes.
it doesn't have to be fistfights. I just want something to be interesting.
Okay. All right, G.I. Julie, what do you think?
I think I'm in the same position where I didn't really like the story either. But I also want to try to do what Josh does, which is offer a solution to my very trivial problem of, okay, cool, if you're going to give us like a Spidey morality tale, then like, what would make this comic better? And like, it's just, there's just so many things in it that like conflict with what seems to be moral or what was seen to be morally wrong before. Like soliciting sex workers is not wrong, but it's played out to be wrong in this book. And it's like used against the bank manager because he turns out to be like a total asshole. So, okay, fine. We'll use those photos against him.
Oh, but he's cheating on his wife, though. That's the point.
Yeah, with a sex worker.
Yeah, but he's cheating on his wife. He's not threatening him because he's with a sex worker. He's threatening him because he's cheating on his wife.
Yeah, which is like we get all of this character building for the bank manager that's like never established. Like I don't even remember him harassing the other women at the bank.
Well, no, it's obviously not shown, but it's just it's explained,
It's
but it's never
implied
shown.
in the one letter that we get. Like there's just like a lot of background stuff that we're meant to extrapolate, and it's like it's not really hitting with me. However, I really I really enjoy the art. It just doesn't fit with Spider-Man. The artist I'm also familiar with, I should say, from New Mutants is like, it fits with New Mutants, but it doesn't fit in a Spidey story. Though we do get some very artful flinging of Spider-Man around the city. There's one panel where he's just like sorry, there's a few panels up at the start where it's like the second page where he just like very artfully swinging around the city.
Mm-hmm.
Like the splash page?
Contemporary style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even that splash page is super great with like the really thin webs, and like Spider-Man himself almost looks a little elongated like a spider. Like his limbs are kind of pointy and thin.
Yeah.
I think I really like the art because he's in his black and white costume. Yeah. I just feel like it fits the tone of how Spidey looks in this book.
Yeah.
I think that even the story, I think, is like fits pretty well with the art. I don't think I would be a huge fan of this if it was the regular thing, unless it was like a darker story arc or a darker book. It definitely doesn't fit like this would not fit the tone of the Thor issue.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that I kind of like the art for the story that we got personally, and specifically this costume, like the black and white costume. I think just looks so great when Spider-Man is drawn like super thin and sharp edges and or sharp corners and those like pencil thin webs.
Mm-hmm.
I think it totally fits with that style.
Well, I also got to quickly say, I agree. This does not fit in with the Thor story, and it doesn't fit in with any of the Spider-Man books we're reading right now, but it definitely fits in with Spider-Man comics from a few years ago that we were reviewing when he had the black costume, right?
Yeah.
Like all those Peter Parkers where the artwork was all like dark and shady, and it so clearly was written during that era and just never used, and now it's used now. But I guess it shows the contrast and how much the style has changed over the last couple of years of Spidey books, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, Josh, what did you think of the story?
I thought it was okay. I really appreciate when we can have a solid Spidey story without having a super villain. Spidey doesn't fight anybody. He doesn't throw one single punch this whole issue, and it still felt like a Spider-Man book. So I definitely give it props for that. I do agree with Jolie. I think that they could have made the bank teller maybe a little bit more of a bad guy, like really blatantly show him doing some like shady things, and then we can use like it'll feel more justified that he gets blackmailed. Because it is strange that I think Becca was saying too, that he's not blackmailing or like threatening the landlord.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like they're equally as bad in this situation. Like at least the manager also gave a reason. Like he was a dick about it, but he's like, she keeps messing up, so I had to fire her. So it's like you're a dick, but I guess there's kind of a reason you're being fired.
Well, no, but he says that, but later on, it's also implied that she rejected him, so he was just looking for a reason to fire her.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is fine, except for you work at a bank and you accidentally gave somebody $100 extra.
Okay.
Well, you work at a bank. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I don't think he's in the right, but she does seem. I don't know. I think they could have done a couple of things or changed things slightly to make him just a pure bad guy. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like just a completely shitty dude. I'm not saying I'm rooting for him in this comic or anything, or I'm on his side. He's still a dick. But yeah, I don't know. There is some like really fun stuff in this. I think that I was a little lost at times and had to go back and reread some pages with the whole helicopter situation.
Yeah, that was poorly done. Yeah, like I would have expected to see like one panel of a helicopter
of something. Yeah, I was like, wait, what? Like even before, like I was just kind of getting lost in the dialogue. I think at times, like. Kate describing the job, I had to like quickly reread the bubble, and then like him going back and forth. Like, you don't actually see him buy the ticket
Right.
for the helicopter, which confused me. Because I was like, oh, Peter, why wouldn't you just buy the ticket and then leave? Because the teller switches the sign to close. So I thought that he missed his chance to buy the ticket.
Yes, I thought that too. Yep.
Right? Because he still has a stack of money in his hand. Like a huge stack of money. Did she give him $100 worth of ones? Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? So I thought he still had all of the money still. And then we don't see him get into helicopter, and then they just say in like a small little square. The next day I went back to Peter's back at the bank. I'm like, what is going on? Like, yeah, there's just moments that felt a little disjointed, and maybe the helicopter thing was a little convoluted.
Yeah, it could have been anything. You're right. It didn't have to be a helicopter ride to Ireland. It could have been anything that cost whatever, how much money it was, right?
He could have just been cashing a check. Like, here, Kate, I'm giving you these photos. All right, here you go. I gotta run to the bank to cash this check because I need to pay my rent tonight. That's it. You know what I mean? It just feels.
Yeah.
So my understanding of the story, I don't know if I must have missed a page or something, but I thought she gives him the check and he goes to cash it at the bank, and then he gets that money, and then he goes to his bank to deposit it so that he can pay his rent.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure he's not going on a helicopter ride. He's going to he's going to take pictures of Margaret Thatcher getting off of her helicopter because she's here to talk about Ireland.
Okay, well, that's what's confusing, because when I first read it, I thought that Kate Cushing said Northern Ireland, but she says Northern Ireland. I'm like, is he going to Ireland?
No, Margaret Thatcher is coming in for a surprise meeting on Northern Ireland. She's coming to talk about Ireland because Margaret Thatcher is from the UK.
Yes, she's going to the United Nations. Sorry. Okay, there you go.
In the US.
Right.
So she's coming, I guess she's across the ocean via helicopter.
Yeah.
Okay. So she's on this helicopter, and she's landing to go to this conference. Peter's going to take pictures of the landing. But first, for some reason, he needs to go cash a check at one bank to get the money, to then put that money in a different bank.
Right.
Why? Just deposit the check.
Well, okay.
I'm sorry. They put so much detail into this part, so it just pissed me off. I was like, why are we just say he has to go to the bank.
Right.
Like, why has got to be two banks? I don't, he needs money to get a cab to go to, I don't know. Like, you're Spider-Man.
Yeah, they could have, with another draft, they could have simplified that whole little dilemma. You're right.
It was like 6 pages of just trying to get Peter to go to 2 separate banks.
Yeah. And it's not like they were like showing how like down on his luck he is. When he goes to his bank, he goes right away to cash the money. You know what I mean? Like, it would be one thing if they were like showing like, oh, he keeps showing up to the banks last minute and he's got to run to a different one because that one's closed now. And like, it's not even a plot point that he's like running around trying to like cash these checks. It's just kind of like part of the story.
Well, anyway, what I appreciate is that we debated the morality of Peter Parker, cashing
a check.
Well, not cashing the check, deciding what to do with the extra $100, and also blackmailing the bank manager. And I think that is a more interesting debate than some of the other debates that we've had. So I think that's what makes this story good. But that's another story. Now,
I think he's cool for doing both those things, but he also should have threatened the landlord. Like, don't throw out this lady. She's doing her best.
So it's kind of like the whole Phantom Menace. We're not here to free slaves. Yeah, you are, but okay.
The duel of the fates. I understand completely.
So here's the thing is, even though we only read that story, there's actually one more story that we're going to quickly talk about, because I believe, Bex, you're the only one that read this one, right?
Yeah, I was like, oh, sick, Captain Marvel, thank God. Something interesting.
So tell us quickly what happened in this one.
So, sucks to be you guys, because this was super cool. Kind Captain Marvel shows up at this woman's place. She lives in New Orleans. Her name's Marie Laveau, and she's like this immortal being. She's like she keeps people think that she's like a voodoo doctor or whatever, and they think that her mother before her and her mother before her was everything, but it's all been this same lady. So every like 50 years she has to drink this potion to restore her lifespan, and in order to make the potion it needs a drop of vampire blood. But unfortunately for her, in the last issue of Doctor Strange has magically gotten rid of the curse that has created vampires in the Marvel Universe.
Yes.
So now there's no vampires in this universe. Mm-hmm. So what she does is she's like, hey, Monica Rambeau, you're literally sunlight, so vampires can't hurt you. I need you to step through my time travel magic mirror to go back in time, wherever you want to go back in time, your choice. Because all I need is there's vampires anywhere besides last week in the past. Because last week, now there's no more vampires. So you can go anywhere you want in the past, just get me some vampire blood through my magic mirror time travel teleporter. And also they're having this entire conversation over very tall glasses of brandy. It's wonderful. So she's like, what's in it for me? And the witchcraft lady is like, didn't you hear me? You can go wherever you want to go. And she's like, all right, cool. So she steps through the mirror and she's like, whoa, what year did you decide to go in? And she's like, we're going to pre-revolutionary France. Let's go. So in pre-revolutionary France, the magic teleportation mirror is owned by this guy named Cagliostro. Mm-hmm. So she just shows up in his place and he's like, whoa, pretty lady, what's going on? He was currently summoning a demon, so he thinks that she's the demon that he summoned. He thinks that she's like a sunlight demon, and she's like, nah, that ain't it, fam. And he's like, all right, cool. So sunlight bounces around, and she's like, oh, crap. You know what? I can't just get out of here and get a vampire. I probably need this guy's help. So she goes back, and she's like, hey, dude, do you know where there's vampires? Also, like, I'm from the future. Don't freak out or anything like that. And the guy's like, actually, I do know where there's a vampire. We can go. But, you better get dressed up in a fancy outfit because we're going to a party. So he takes her to a ball at Count Dracula's house. Mm-hmm. Who is somebody that Monica Rambeau has fought before because she's defeated vampires before because she's the sun, basically. So they dress up in some pre-revolutionary France formal wear. He uses magic to just magic her into a dress, which, yes, amazing. And they show up to Count Dracula's castle, and he is just completely smitten with her. The most beautiful woman he's ever seen in his entire life. And she just completely falls for Dracula. She's like, wow, oh my god, like, nice castle, you're so handsome, let's dance. So they dance. And then, eventually, the magician guy, Cagliostro, is like, hey, Monica, we gotta go. Like, you're falling for his spell, and we still need blood. And she's like, oh my god, you're right. So they leave for some reason so that she can sneak back in. I don't even know why they go to the dance. So she sneaks back into his Count Dracula's castle during the daytime because he's sleeping, and she takes a syringe of his blood. Well, he wakes up because a syringe of his blood has been taken out, and they have a fight, and in the midst of the fight, Dracula bites Monica Rambeau in the neck and drinks her blood. So she, like, sparks sunshine everywhere. She gets away. She goes back to the magic guy who has the magic mirror, and she's like, I'm out of pre-revolutionary France. It sucks here. So she goes back through, and she's like, hey, witchcraft lady, I got your syringe of blood. But because Doctor Strange has magicked away the curse that has allowed vampires to exist in the Marvel Universe, the moment the blood hits the universe it's not supposed to be in, it boils and explodes. And the witchcraft lady goes, ah, damn, you know what? I thought that might happen. Well, thanks anyway. And that's literally the end.
Well,
Oh, and then we get a really great just splash page of Captain Marvel and Dracula.
Yeah. And we should point out this is drawn by Bob Hall, who we've interviewed, and inked by Bill Sienkiewicz, and written by... Who wrote this one? Oh, Dennis Maloney, who I've never heard of. But
this is my favorite kind of nonsense.
yeah.
I loved it. I know you guys didn't read it, and I recommend that maybe you do, because it's just fun. It's fun in a very different way than the Thor comic was.
Sure.
It's very fan servicey. Monica Rambeau's bazonkas are present.
Hello.
Yes, hello, they are here. Dracula just sweeps her off her feet. It's very romantic. I love the art. The art just very much hits the vibe of the vampires. And it's just nonsense. Like, none of it matters. Why vampires not exist in the Marvel Universe currently? Who knows? Read Doctor Strange number 60 if you want. It's all for nothing, but at least you get some time travel fun.
Yeah, this just seems like one of those crazy, random Marvel stories you read back in those days, and they probably never refer to the story again. But yeah, it looks fun.
Well, because she gets bit by a vampire.
What's that, Jolie?
It reminds me of Doctor Who.
Right. Yeah, just like a random Doctor Who story, right?
Yeah, just
That's cool that you were actually seeing Cagliostro too, because I know him from Doctor Strange stories. Because I think actually even in the movies he's mentioned, he is the one that the forbidden book that Doctor Strange reads in the movie to learn how to use the Time Stone and to fight Dormammu. That is the book of Cagliostro.
Oh, okay.
Because Cagliostro learned magic through the Darkhold. And he made like a journal about his time like learning magic and through the Darkhold, and that's what Doctor Strange reads in the movie. I think he also trains, I think Doctor Doom goes back in time and gets trained by Cagliostro as well.
Well, it's funny because I haven't read many Doctor Strange stories from this time, but I definitely want to read more. And maybe I will finish this one or read this one. So here's the thing. I definitely recommend Marvel Fanfare number 42 for the Spidey story. Joshua Mervell, do you recommend this issue?
Yeah, it was pretty fun. Usually these like event big things are kind of hit or miss, and I think this one was pretty solid. It could have been better, but yeah, I think I'd recommend it.
All right, G.I. Jolie.
It was fine, but if what you really love is historical fiction and 18th century magicians / occultists, if you like all of those things, and I'll repeat them again, 18th century occultists / according to Wikipedia, self-styled magicians, then yeah, that's this. The backup story is for you. I recommend it. I gave it 10 Dracula bites out of 10. So good. I love Bill Sienkiewicz as well.
Yes. Sorry, did I mention he inked this? Yes, he's amazing.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
And it's also very apparent.
Yes.
There's no mistaking
right.
Sienkiewicz, so.
Yes. And he also did a Dracula story in X-Men, so maybe that's why they used him for this. But anyway, Bill Sienkiewicz is awesome. Bex Luthor, do you recommend this issue?
Yes, but just for the Captain Marvel stuff.
Okay.
Good thing we are doing a podcast specifically about her, right?
Yep. Maybe one day, you never know.
Don't tempt me. We already reviewed her first appearance, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was
in Amazing Spider-Man
Annual.
Yep.
That's
okay.
Have they, like, met before?
Huh?
I don't think they... Where's the Monica Rambeau Peter Parker team up? she keeps popping up in these Spider-Man comics, but not with him.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is interesting. Well, maybe she comes back one day. We'll see. Anyway,
Maybe.
So yeah, I guess that's it. That wraps up this week's episode, eh? That was the first time we've done any Spidey guest appearances in a long time. I'm going to assume it's just because there must have been an editorial kind of mandate at the time to just keep him out of other books or something. I don't know, right? But maybe that's one reason they fired James Owsley. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, it's been a while though since we've had some
Guest
crossovers.
appearances. Definitely. Yeah. So yeah, I want to thank G.I. Jolie and Bex Luthor for joining us again. The whole gang is here.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like last time when we were not happy to be here. Well, it was Morbius. Why would we be happy to be here?
Yeah,
Never.
good point.
Ugh. Speaking of vampires,
So
Josh was like, I'm sick. I can't go see Morbius to review it. And we're like, yeah, sure, whatever. Okay.
I was, to be fair.
So I just want to tell everybody to be sure to join us next week when we review Web of Spider-Man number 41 featuring The Cult of Love Part 2. Jolie's looking forward to that. Amazing Spider-Man 303 featuring the Silver Sable and the Sandman. And Spectacular Spider-Man 141 featuring the Punisher. And Josh, you can take it from here.
Yeah, I want to thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. Please leave us a review over on Apple Podcast or keep in touch through any of our socials. That's Twitter at Comic Syndicate, Facebook at the Comic Book Syndicate. Anywhere you can find podcasts, you can find us. So yeah, let's keep that comics conversation going.
Right, and until next Monday, see you later.